Hello, everyone. It's Victoria with Nutrition by Victoria, and welcome to today's video. So, for those of you who don't know me, I have a Master's of Science in Human Nutrition, and I specialize in helping you to become a fit, lean, and healthy person effortlessly while eating unlimited carbohydrates, okay? Because carbs are what increase our metabolism and help us to burn body fat to stay effortlessly lean long term. And this also supports us to be optimally healthy as well. So, really simple formula. Unfortunately, we're up against a lot of metabolic misinformation out there of people just not understanding how the human metabolism truly works. So, just to share some information about me, I just ate this whole packet of dates, 10 ounces of dates. I also ate a packet of Sour Patch Kids and an orange, and that's what I had for lunch. I like to eat the simple sugars because they keep me going all day. I took my fasting glucose this morning. It was 89. And I did another glucose tolerance test for those of you curious. I've been mixing about 50 grams of sugar in with orange juice in the morning. And I drink that up. And then I wait about an hour and a half or so before I take my glucose test. Usually you wait about 2 hours, so postprandial. But I had stuff to do, and my glucose reading was 102. So insulin sensitivity is what those numbers display. Okay, that my body is very efficient at taking the sugar that I ingest that goes into my blood and taking it out of the blood and putting it into the cells. So insulin, that's its job. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with you guys. And many of you have been commenting about my webcam. It's not the worst webcam. Could it have better quality? Sure. So I'm open to your suggestions. I use Microsoft or Windows technology. Okay. So the first thing that we're going to do is take a look at my coaching program. So my coaching program is all about understanding the human metabolism and then taking that information, which is all referenced at the end of the program. So you can look at the sources that I use, take a deep dive into, exploring those sources yourself to, probably come to the same conclusions that I have about how the human metabolism works. So insulin is very important because it is designed to help glucose get into our cells from the blood. It's like the gatekeeper, okay? If you have too much intramyocellular fat, insulin's going to have a hard time doing its job. If you have too much fat in your blood, insulin's going to have a hard time doing its job. So the idea is to clear out the fat by clearing out the fat that's in your diet. And then by maintaining a dietary fat deficit, you're going to help to clear more excess fat out of your body to encourage insulin sensitivity. Insulin sensitivity is the key to maintaining a slim, fit, healthy body. That's why I show you guys what I look like at the beginning of my videos so that you can see that I'm always lean year round, regardless of whether I'm pregnant or having kids. I have 3 kids and I'm almost 40. So that works great. We're also going to talk a little bit about aging here too. So first things first, I had a question from my website, www.nutritionbyvictoria.com. There is a contact me option on my website, and you can fill out a contact form and leave questions, comments, concerns, whatever it is. Somebody asked me to look into this gal named Candy. Okay, so we're going to watch a little short here. We're going to watch a few of them, but this is the one I pulled up first, of Dr. Kiltz and Candy talking about insulin. So let's have a look.
What do you think was that little switch that helped those women that enabled them to lose that weight in such a quick amount of time where before it wasn't happening?
Anytime you lower your carbs and you're able to get into ketosis, that's always better for cellular health. So they're able to burn fat now. They're fat burners. And what I've learned is insulin is a circadian hormone. It is most sensitive in the morning. If you're loading up on food and you're making insulin work deep into the later day hours, you're just going to have insulin in your system all the time. You're going to be less insulin sensitive and you're going to not be able to break into those fat stores because insulin's gatekeeping the fat. That's how it's designed to be.
Insulin is one of the most important hormones in our body, and its job is to make fat.
Yes.
And if you can't make it and you don't eat it, you die.
Oh, LOL. Okay. The amount of misinformation in that short was just mind-boggling. Like, do these people like just get together and just talk as much like nonsense as possible? Because that is basically all that I heard come from that. So, you guys ready for my commentary? Here we go. Oh, I think I hold on. Okay. Let's go back. Apparently, this Dr. Kiltz guy is another carnivore doctor. They all look inflamed. Do you agree? A lot of it's going to be from like the inflammation that eating that diet causes from the elevated cortisol all the time. But then if you're using exogenous hormones, that's going to give that appearance as well.
So what do you think was that little switch that helped those women that enabled them to lose that weight in such a quick amount of time where before it wasn't happening?
Now, what helped them to lose that amount of weight in such a quick amount of time? That is generally a red flag for fluid loss. And as we are going to hear coming up, is that inducing ketosis encourages water weight loss on the scales via dehydration and the depletion of glycogen stores.
Time you lower your carbs and you're able to get into ketosis, that's always better for cellular health. So,
okay. It's always better for cellular health. Now, what she should have said, what Candy should have said is that sure, ketosis can make somebody lose weight really quickly because it depletes somebody's glycogen because there's no carbs coming in. Okay, so we have glycogen depletion. For every 1 gram of carbohydrate that we store as glycogen, we store about 4 grams of water with it. So glycogen is carbs and water. Okay, so that can look like anywhere from 2 to 4 pounds of weight lost on the scale. This will happen with calorie restriction, but it happens even more drastically with ketosis because you lose the glycogen storage, all of it. Okay. And then you're also going to cause systemic dehydration throughout the entire body. Why is that? Because ketogenesis, or the generation of ketones, is very toxic to our system. So, in order to buffer some of that toxicity, we have to use water to do that. So, we release internal water stores in order to flush out the ketones. Okay, so you have glycogen depletion and you have dehydration from being in ketogenesis. Okay, so this has nothing to do with your cellular health. In fact, this is very hard on your body to be constantly living in a state of this level of dehydration. A lot of people who adopt a carnivore diet, initially they'll say, I'm suffering from insomnia and anxiety and all this stuff, and that is part of the glucose, the lack of glucose in the diet, and you having to convert into this different metabolic state of energy generation. And The thing about it, the most ironic thing about it, Candy, is that you're lowering your metabolic rate and you're actually slowing the system down, okay, in order to preserve energy. Because when you're in ketosis, your body is like, we're in survival mode. There's a famine. We got to slow things down so that we can conserve as much as possible to stay alive.
So they're able to burn fat now. They're fat burners.
Ketosis does utilize fat stores for energy production. So the way that this works is you're eating normally, which means you're eating carbohydrates, and your body's happy, right? You're using glycolysis to feed anaerobic and aerobic respiration. Glycolysis is the breakdown of glucose. Okay. You are fueling your glycogen stores via these processes as well. Actually, insulin has a lot to do with that, creating glycogen. And if you have a healthy metabolism and you're insulin sensitive, you are going to be down regulating de novo lipogenesis, which is the creation of fat from carbohydrates, because we can convert carbohydrates into fat. And this process happens more readily after you've come out of a period of glucose starvation. So as long as you have sufficient glucose coming in, your body stays nice and happy and down regulates fat storage because it doesn't need to. There is no sense of a famine in the near future because you are telling your body with consistent glucose intake every single day that it doesn't need to store fat. Okay. And it can burn fat, because something that Candy's not mentioning here is that when we are creating energy in our aerobic respiration TCA cycle, we are utilizing both carbohydrates in the form of glucose that converts to pyruvate, and we're also adding substrates that can be converted into energy, acetyl-CoA specifically, from fatty acid oxidation. Okay, so we are using carbs and fats to provide ATP for our energy production. Okay, so we're always burning carbs and fats as long as we're breathing. Okay, because oxygen is the driver of that entire cycle. So it's important to note that we're never just burning carbs and we're never just burning fat. Okay. The ratios can change depending on energy demand. So if you are sprinting, for instance, you're going to be using up mostly carbohydrates, and that has to do with the fact that you're going to be kind of participating in anaerobic respiration if you're producing a lot of lactate because you're not a conditioned athlete, right? Endurance athletes, burn about a 50-50 carbs to fat ratio. If you're walking, you're probably burning more fat than you are carbs, but you need carbs to drive the TCA cycle along with oxygen in order to tap into the fat. This also raises your metabolism. Okay. The problem with ketosis, once you've entered ketosis, it means that you were already using gluconeogenesis, which you guys hear me talk about a lot, in order to create glucose as a last ditch effort. So you've run out of glycogen and your body is signaling the liver to kick on gluconeogenesis in order to provide glucose for the TCA cycle, for energy generation. And what this does is converts the protein that's available either from your diet, but usually from muscle tissue, into carbohydrate. Okay, so protein is prioritized for gluconeogenesis because it's easier to convert into glucose than fat. But lactate can also be converted into glucose as well. So this process, because it's harder to create glucose from non-glucose substrates as opposed to just having glucose coming from glycogen, you're slowing down the metabolism due to the lack of oxaloacetate that's being regenerated. Okay, so again, these are details that these people are leaving out. So after you've exhausted gluconeogenesis, which takes about 48 hours, depends, what your energy demands are. You're going to start kicking on ketosis. The thing is you're never just running full-blown ketosis, okay? You still are running gluconeogenesis as well because the brain uses glucose. It doesn't use ketones. So let's say, percentage wise, you're looking at 80% ketosis is supplying ketones for energy generation. And then you've got 20% gluconeogenesis, which means that, you're still converting protein into glucose. Okay. So this is how insulin resistance develops because insulin isn't being used. Okay. If you have poor blood sugar regulation going into this, it's likely that that's going to continue because you're not using insulin at all. Insulin only gets used when you take in glucose dietarily, okay? When you ingest glucose. Otherwise, the pancreas stimulates glucagon to be encouraging the liver to dump glucose into the blood for energy generation. So the blood is the way we transfer our glucose around, okay? So you're still creating glucose, but now you don't have anything to regulate it, which is what insulin does. So let's keep moving forward.
Learned is insulin is a circadian hormone. It is most sensitive in the morning. If you're loading up on
insulin is subject to cortisol in the morning. So it's not that insulin is more sensitive per se in the morning because plenty of people cannot pass a fasting glucose test, okay, which is done in the morning after you fasted before you've eaten a meal, right? And that is usually due to cortisol being elevated. Cortisol helps us to go find food in the morning. So it helps us to wake up in the morning. Usually we're waking up with light. Sometimes we're waking up with hunger signals. So we wake up and we have energy. Where's that energy coming from? It's coming from the elevated cortisol that is signaling our liver to be putting glucose into our cells. But the cortisol is also elevated because we are running low on glycogen. In the morning when we wake up, depending on how much we ate the day prior of carbohydrate, our glycogen stores could be completely empty or they could be about 80% empty. But either way, they're going to be empty unless you spend all night, eating or drinking alcohol, but I'm talking about somebody just slept for 8 to 10 hours and now they're getting up in the morning. So, you're going to want to eat something, preferably high in carbohydrate, in order to bring that cortisol down. And then that is what signals your body to use insulin. She said insulin is sensitive in the morning. Really, insulin is ready to do its job, okay? So it's ready for you to take in some carbs so it can put those carbohydrates into your cells and start replenishing your glycogen stores.
On food and you're making insulin work deep into the later day hours, you're just going to have insulin in your system all the time. You're going to be
Did anybody notice the pause there? I mean, if you play the whole clip, she pauses there. You're just going to have insulin in your system all the time. From what? Okay. like that, she is referring to somebody who is insulin resistant. Okay. You're going to have insulin in your system. Okay. Let's have some context here. All the time, which means that your pancreas is pumping out the insulin because your blood sugar levels are high. If your blood sugar levels are chronically elevated, it means that you have insulin resistance. Let me know in the comments what causes insulin resistance. Okay. Let me see if I can make this bigger for you guys too, real quick. Should be able to zoom in here. I know there's an option for it. Let's see. So dietetic factors influencing the glucose tolerance and the activity of insulin. Okay. I should be able to zoom. I really want to. Okay. Anyways, you guys know what I'm going to say. It is now established that sugar tolerance is impaired by starvation, glucose starvation, carbohydrate restriction, or the taking of diets with a high content of fat, while it is improved by taking diets containing an excess of carbohydrate. So, what would make somebody insulin resistant or have high blood glucose levels and constantly have insulin pumping out of their pancreas, aka a high insulin level, would be glucose starvation or high fat diet, not carbohydrates, not ketosis, because ketosis programs us to be insulin resistant after the famine period is over. And why is that? Because your body wants to live and wants to survive the famine. Okay. So it's going to store fat because you've been starving it of its main energy source, and that's glucose. Everybody demonizes carbohydrates, and it's because they don't understand these simple principles.
Be less insulin sensitive, and you're going to not be able to break into those fat stores. You're going to be less insulin sensitive, and you're just going to have insulin in your system to the later day hours. You're just going to have insulin in your system all the time. You're going to be less insulin sensitive, and you're going to not be able to break into those fat stores because insulin's gatekeeping the fat. That's how.
Okay. What she just described was insulin resistance. Okay. When somebody is insulin resistant and their blood sugar is chronically elevated and insulin cannot get that blood sugar down because you're insulin resistant. Okay. So you keep pumping out this insulin and the sugar just won't go into the cells. Okay. Because there's too much fat in the cells from a high fat diet, or insulin just isn't working properly because you are not taking in enough glucose. Okay. And then you start taking in glucose again, and insulin is upregulating a process known as de novo lipogenesis. So insulin, when it's too high because blood sugar levels are high, it is telling the body to turn this sugar into fat. We need to store it. We need to get rid of it. There's too much. Our insulin levels are high. There's too much going on. Okay. So when somebody is insulin resistant, they're going to favor fat storage. They're going to favor de novo lipogenesis. This is because these cells are not getting glucose. Okay. If insulin was able to do its job and to put that sugar in the blood into the cells, there will be no de novo lipogenesis. Okay.
How it's designed to be.
Insulin is one of the most important hormones in our body, and its job is to make fat.
Yes.
And if you can't make it and you don't eat it, you die.
So she was acting like it was a bad thing. And he's like, it's a good thing that insulin helps us to make fat. Okay. So we're going to take a look at my coaching program because these people are just like, so confusing. I'm sure they're so confusing to their audience because nobody knows what they're talking about. I mean, these people act like they know what they're talking about, but they don't actually know what they're talking about. So here we go. My coaching program is available on my website, www.nutritionbyvictoria.com. And there is a link in the description of this video to purchase my coaching program as well. Insulin and energy storage. So insulin directs excess carbohydrate calories when they're consumed to be converted into glycogen. Okay. It's an energy requiring process. Glycogen retention equals 2 to 4 pounds, up to 8 pounds in athletes. So when we consume carbohydrate, insulin takes that glucose that needs to be shunted to our cells for energy creation. It allows, that to happen. And then it also takes the excess energy that's consumed that doesn't need to be used right now, and it turns it into glycogen because it'll be needed later on. During this process too, insulin shuts down our ability to burn fat because we don't have a need right now to burn fat because we just took in all these carbohydrates. So we're replenishing the system. Okay. Insulin only temporarily shuts down fat burnings though. So as soon as you're done eating, and you're moving around and that sugar is going into your cells and you're starting to use that energy again. Okay. Now you're burning fat again too. So it's a very temporary hold on fat, not fat burning. Okay. So once you're hit postprandial, where you're after your meal, you're back to burning fat. Or let's say you're eating while you're biking, that window is going to be even smaller because your demand for energy is so high in that moment. So it's very subjective, but insulin does temporarily shut down fat burning. What's important to understand is that when you have low circulating insulin levels, then your, window for fat limited or no fat burning is going to be very small. The problem is when your insulin levels are really high all the time because your blood sugar levels are high all the time, then you're never going to be able to burn fat because you can't clear that insulin. And it's just because your cells are like, we're not getting the sugar that we need. Because remember, with diabetics, what is the most significant thing that metformin, which is the primary drug used to manage type 2 diabetes, what does it do? Okay. What do you think is the metabolic process that is happening when you aren't able to take the sugar in the blood and put it into the cells? Gluconeogenesis is being triggered. So you've got high blood sugar levels, you've got high circulating insulin, and your cells are still like, hey, we need sugar. So your liver's like, okay, pump more sugar into the blood so we can get this into the cells. And so that is the role of metformin, is to shut down hepatic gluconeogenesis, because that is what is being triggered when there isn't sugar getting into the cells when insulin is trying to do that. And why is that? Because you're insulin resistant. Why are you insulin resistant? From the inconsistent carbohydrate intake, from the lack of carbohydrate intake in your diet, and from a high fat diet. Okay. Combination is deadly. So going back to my coaching program, excess glucose can be converted to and stored as triglycerides if certain metabolic or dietary conditions are present, such as a high fat diet, hyperphagia, which happens following starvation. So this is a programmed response by your body. Hyperphagia is when your appetite is like crazy. Okay. If you've ever done a fast or done chronic calorie restriction and then went all in afterwards, or a low carb diet and then just went all in on carbs, you know what hyperphagia is. I've experienced it myself. This also can be from a low fiber diet because we need carbohydrates and fiber and water to signal satiety. So de novo lipogenesis is the process of converting carbohydrates into fat. It's a highly inefficient process, which means it's very energy taxing to turn carbohydrates into fat. There's a lot of energy that gets used up in this process. And it's promoted, de novo lipogenesis again is promoted by insulin resistance, elevated cortisol, which is the signal for gluconeogenesis. It's the signal for, hey, we need to go find glucose in our environment. So chronically elevated cortisol, you'll find it in the low carb, the fasting, and the, ketosis running people. Okay. They're going to have chronically elevated cortisol. And then low leptin. Low leptin means that you haven't been eating carbohydrates. So it tanks in your blood and that increases hunger signals. Okay. For more information, take a look at the link in the description of this video so you can purchase my coaching program. I promise you won't be disappointed. Okay. So let's see what else we have from Candy Frazier here. I mean, these are all the carnivore people. Okay, here's another one where she's talking about sugar. Yay.
How many of us have eaten dinner and then wanted chocolate afterwards or wanted something sweet? That is a sign that you have high insulin. When you eat,
that is a sign that you haven't eaten enough carbohydrate. They used to run these advertisements, and this is like back in the 50s, 60s, where eating sugar something sugary before a meal would lower somebody's appetite, because sugar is the most satisfying food on the planet. Okay. Carbohydrates, something that's high in carbohydrates, low in fat, signals satiety. Okay. So if you feed a child something sugary before dinner, they're not going to want to eat their dinner. And what is dinner usually comprised of is high fat, high protein, animal based pieces and secretions, along with maybe like some starchy carbs and vegetables, right? So craving something sweet after dinner does not mean that you have high insulin. Maybe you have high insulin from the meal that you just ate because you ate such a high fat meal that you can't take the sugar that's in your blood and put it into your cells because the fat that's negating that process, candy. So the solution's simple: cut the fat in the diet so that insulin levels can lower. And you could be more satisfied too. I eat 3,500 calories a day of high carb, low fat foods, and I'm a lean bean. That is the outcome of eating this way, is a highly efficient metabolism and insulin sensitivity, and being able to eat as much carbohydrate as you want.
Eat food, your body starts registering your blood sugar. As you're eating your meal, and let's say you're 20 minutes into it, your blood sugar is already raising. And so your pancreas,
that's normal,
says, okay, time to kick on insulin. And if your set point has been eating a lot of carbs and glucose your entire life, your body is going to produce a lot of insulin.
It's not true. Your body only produces a lot of insulin if you're insulin resistant. Okay. A high carb, low fat diet makes someone insulin sensitive, lowers insulin needs. Do I need to play the Dr. McDougall video for you guys? Maybe I will.
Because that's what
fat paralyzes insulin, increases insulin needs. Sugar, including white table sugar, lowers the insulin needs of type 2 diabetics. Did that sound good?
What it's ready for. So if you produce all that insulin, your body's going to want to eat more to keep your blood sugar up. Let's say you have macaroni and cheese for 3 nights in a row, and then the next
macaroni and cheese is typically high in fat. It's a fat carb bomb.
Night you have just a steak, but your body produces insulin like you ate macaroni and cheese. You produce a whole bunch of insulin, and now
the steak is going to increase your insulin needs as well because it's high fat. So you've got high fat in combination with, let's say, gluconeogenesis, which is because you didn't eat carbs this day, okay? But you ate this steak. So your liver's like, okay, we got to pump out this glucose made from protein from your muscles or from, the protein that you ate. And we're going to, shunt that glucose around to try to get into your cells, right? But because you eat this high fat meal now, it's still having problems. So your insulin level is still high. It's not the carbs.
Now we don't have enough sugar in the blood to handle that. When you have high insulin, your body naturally goes, we got a lot of insulin, we better get a craving for more sugar. That's why
the cravings for more sugar are to supply the energy demands of your cells. Okay. Sugar tolerance is maintained via excess carbohydrate intake because it allows insulin to work better. So what she's saying here is if you have a whole big amount of insulin that needs to put your sugar into your cells, and then there's no sugar there, that's going to drive down blood sugar levels and cause hypoglycemia. But what is she not? Where's the elephant in the room? The elephant in the room is that these foods that she's mentioning are high fat foods and animal pieces.
Get that sweet craving after you eat dinner. How many of us have eaten dinner and then wanted chocolate afterwards or wanted something sweet? That is a sign that you have high insulin. When you eat food, your body starts registering your blood sugar. As you're eating your meal, and let's say you're 20 minutes into it, your blood sugar is already raising. And so your pancreas says, okay, time to kick on insulin. And if your set point has been eating a lot of carbs and glucose your entire life, your body is going to produce a lot of insulin because that's what it's ready for. So if you produce all that insulin, your body's going to want to eat more to keep your blood sugar up. Let's say you have macaroni and cheese for 3 nights in a row, and then the next night you have just a steak, but your body produces insulin like you ate macaroni and cheese. You produce a whole bunch of insulin, and now we don't have enough sugar in the blood to handle that. When you have high insulin, your body naturally goes, we got a lot of insulin, we better get a craving for more sugar. That's why you get that sweet craving after you eat dinner.
So I just wanted to play that whole thing for you guys so you could hear it all, because I kind of cut her off in a few places. But did you hear that the body craves the sugar to allow insulin to work better? Okay. So the sugar craving is so that insulin can do its job. So it all is there so that your body can improve its insulin sensitivity. So your body wants to be insulin sensitive, okay? But it needs you to participate in this process by avoiding low carb diets and high fat diets and eating an excess of carbohydrate. Okay, we'll go ahead and take a look at one more because I think my little buddy's going to be waking up soon. I'm also curious, like, what are her credentials? Candy Frazier, no BS weight loss for women that are tired of not seeing results. Real food, real change, guaranteed in just 6 weeks. My weight loss program. We're going to click on her website. All she's spouting is misinformation here. Okay. I want to know if Candy has any credentials. Are you a carnivore doctor? Okay, I see. I married a type 1 diabetic CPA and finally learned about our master fat storing hormone, insulin. Again, we learned that insulin levels have to be elevated for de novo lipogenesis to happen. What encourages elevated insulin levels is a high fat diet. And I'm sure that, most people who eat the standard American diet are eating a high fat diet. If you're eating over 10% of your calories, daily calories from fat, you have a certain degree of insulin resistance. Okay. Some people are born with insulin resistance. So they're type 1 diabetics where they're just not even producing insulin. It's an autoimmune disease, usually caused by consuming dairy products at a young age, or maybe some other things that contribute towards autoimmune disease that children are exposed to. And type 1 diabetics like Robbie Barbaro, who runs Mastering Diabetes, and he's, has to use injected insulin before a meal. So he's got to know, like, okay, how much carbs is going to be in my meal so I can use my, insulin to prepare for that. He eats a high carb, low fat diet and lowered his insulin needs. You lower the insulin needs of diabetics when you consume a high carbohydrate, low fat diet. Most people don't know what low fat means. You actually have to be aware of the fat grams that you're consuming. I recommend 10 grams of fat a day if you're going for max insulin sensitivity, which is also going to translate to max weight loss. Okay. But 10% of your diet being coming from fat is a good place to start as well. When you start going higher than that, if you're sensitive to the effects of insulin and insulin resistance, then it can start showing up. The standard American diet is about anywhere from 30% to 50% fat. A carnivore diet's like 80% fat, calories coming from fat, maybe 70, it depends on what you're eating. Like steak and butter gal, she likes to eat her fatty meats and butter, that's going to be more fat than like a lean meat eating carnivore, which humans aren't carnivores, like it's crazy that these people think, like, how long do you really think you're going to live eating just animal-based foods? Like, carnivores in nature don't live for very long. And it's because they're not designed to. They're designed to take out weak prey, and then, you know, they get phased out themselves as well. So it's really like population control. And in our system, we've got all these people who want to consume all these animals that I think the factory farming animal agricultural system contributes like to 60% of the animal life on the planet. And that's for people to eat them. It's very disturbing. And you know, some people call veganism a cult. I call that a cult because you don't have to eat animals to be healthy. I've created 3 children without consuming any animal products in the last 13 years. Okay. So yeah, that's just important to know that this lady doesn't actually have credentials. It sounds like she's just ran with this carnivore movement, as most of them do. I mean, even none of the doctors sound like they know what they're talking about. I mean, actually, some of them, a lot of them, what they'll do is they'll take information like what Dr. Anthony Chafee was talking about yesterday with autophagy, and share how autophagy works when insulin levels are low. Okay. So you're insulin sensitive. But then he says a high carbohydrate diet makes you insulin resistant when it's exactly the opposite. Okay. The thing that these people kind of ride on is that when you're not taking in glucose, yes, your insulin levels lower, but you program your body for insulin resistance, and it's just a matter of time before your metabolic machinery stops working appropriately. So could be 6 months, could be 3 months, could be 2 years, could be 6 years, you know, before malfunctions start to occur. But what I will tell you about all of these carnivore people and the clients that I see personally in their blood work is that they all are experiencing high total cholesterol, high LDL cholesterol, high ApoB, and these are all risk factors for heart disease. These people are giving themselves and their audience who follow their advice heart disease. So we are going to go to Sean Baker here. Okay. These carnivore people, you know. Okay, so I think it's common carnivore lab results, what to expect. That's the one I think I want to click on.
Okay, some of you.
And of course, they're all buddies with Joe Rogan because he's doing the same thing too. And he looks all red and inflamed as well. And, you know, Harley Johnstone, Durian Rider, has a good point about these folks. Like, what is their true fitness level? Can they run a 5K race? Like, what is their time? You know, they all look like they're kind of like meatheads, you know, lift lots of weights because they're possibly taking endogenous hormones. But you know, that's always a good question. Looking fit and being fit are 2 different things. Looking healthy and being healthy are 2 different things as well. Okay, let's see here. Hopefully he didn't take the video down. I think it might be this one where he's talking. He changed the title, probably because his cholesterol level came in at 270. Okay, let's see. No. Oh, he's just talking about lifestyle factors there. Okay, so he might have even taken the video down. Let's see.
Okay, some of you may first have heard of it.
Because they weren't good. His labs, I mean, he tested for uric acid, and he showed his total cholesterol, and then there was something else that he tested for in this little like pocket tester device. But it, oh my gosh, he took the video down. I'll just post it for you guys because I screenshotted the clip of him showing his cholesterol at 270. And honestly, like the thing that these people are not, they make excuses for their cholesterol being high because every single one of them is going to have, oh, it's right here. Never mind. I found it. Yay. Okay. Now there it is. Yes. Okay. Thanks for bearing with me for a second. What these people don't understand is that having cholesterol levels this high, you can go to any cardiologist and they will say, this isn't good. And they'll say, well, I'm using, this fat for energy, though. It doesn't matter. Okay. The human body is not designed to take in an extensive amount of fat. Okay. We will just store it in our arteries, we'll store it in our fat cells. We get sick from it. Okay. Because we are not carnivores. And even carnivores in nature, they'll get a big kill, they'll eat it up, and then they won't eat for another 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 days before they're like, okay, it's time to go find some more food. So can you imagine a human whose energy requirements for glucose are very high? Okay, so you're going to be hungrier than a true carnivore would. So your body's going to be stimulating you to go eat something in an effort to encourage you to eat some glucose so that it can use it to make energy, right? And you eat animal fat instead, this is the outcome of it, okay? Having high total cholesterol, LDL cholesterol, which is our body's it's the cholesterol that is being deposited. Okay, it's not being removed, which that's what HDL cholesterol does, is it removes cholesterol that gets deposited in our vascular system. And then we're going, with this style of a diet, you're going to get fat all around your heart. Then you're going to need heart quadruple bypass. I know people who have had these procedures. I've watched a heart surgery before where they've had to go in and cut the chest open with a saw and clear out the blood vessels of the blockages. That's what's happening. The heart blood vessels are very thin and they're very delicate. So you put a bunch of saturated fat deposited in there and they're going to clog up really easily. So I think Dr. Greger said that, children can start, showing signs of heart disease early on because that's when it starts. It's like cancer, it is a gradual process of damage that happens to the system from the food that we're eating. So the solution is simple: high carb, low fat diet. That's what most people have been eating in order to get us this far, honestly, on the planet. Okay. We've been alive for a long, long time, and we've always been foraging for carbohydrate. We've always been seeking out carbohydrate. Our population as humans boomed when we figured out how to grow corn and rice and potatoes, and in the tropics we're able to eat fruit. In Egypt they were eating lots of dates, because date palms are everywhere. So even when in indigenous people who eat animals and kill them and eat them, they're still foraging for other plant foods because we need them in order to be healthy. We can't meet all of our nutritional needs just eating the dead flesh of an animal because we are not true carnivores. Okay, we can't make our own vitamin C. We have to consume plants, and the more plants that we consume and the less fat that's in our diet overall, the healthier that we're going to be, because it encourages insulin sensitivity. Okay, so the last thing that I want to talk about here, so dietetic factors influencing the glucose tolerance and the activity of insulin. The thing is that the information has been here, okay? Why it hasn't been mainstreamed is because healthy people are bad for business. You know, who profits from people eating rice other than the people who are growing rice? You know, there's not a lot of money to be made from healthy people. And that's just what it's all about. Okay. So let's go ahead and look at this. Somebody was debating with me about glycation because they said that I misconstrued Ken Berry's explanation on glycation. Here's the deal. Okay. We always have sugar in our blood. All right. All the time. It is what allows us to continue to be alive, because being alive means that we are converting sugar into energy. Okay. So is the part of glycation that includes sugar the problem? Or is it the excess amount of free amino groups from protein? Or is it the lipids or the nucleic acids that are coming from the animal products as well? So this is a peer-reviewed clinical research study analysis that lists foods highest in advanced glycation end products and foods lowest in advanced glycation end products. Okay. So the issue with glycation comes down to the consumption of the foods that are highest in advanced glycation end products. Okay. And those are going to be your animal-derived foods that are high in fat and protein. They're AGE rich and prone to new AGE formation during cooking, okay, because you're denaturing the structure of the molecules and making more of these free amino acids and lipids, okay? Dietary advanced glycation end products are known to contribute to increased oxidant stress and inflammation, which are linked to the recent epidemics of diabetes and cardiovascular disease. This article is proof that a high fat, high protein intake increases glycation in the system, increases aging. The aging process is increased oxidant stress and inflammation in the system. Okay, that's what promotes aging. Your telomeres, which are these aspects of your DNA, okay, they shorten when you consume more AGE-rich foods. They lengthen when you consume less AGE-rich foods. The longer your telomeres, the longer you're going to live, the less you're going to age. So everybody's going to age, but the slower we make the process. Okay. So the pathologic effects of AGEs are related to their ability to promote oxidative stress and inflammation by binding with cell surface receptors or cross-linking with body proteins, altering their structure and function. This is not a sugar problem. This is a fat problem. This is a denatured protein problem. Okay. This is an insulin resistance problem. A high carbohydrate, low fat diet encourages insulin sensitivity. I'm going to leave a link for this in the description of this video today. Please have a look at it. Foods that are also high in AGE formation include nuts and seeds, avocado, butter, peanuts, oils. You know, people are so against these seed oils. Well, yeah, because look at their AGE formation, but you shouldn't just cherry pick and say seed oils are inflammatory when you got animal fats that are, if not more, inflammatory. Okay. Bacon registers on here as a 91,000 with no added oil. That's pig fat. Okay. You get down to the carbohydrates here, and you've got a dinner roll, 77. A dinner roll on the inside, 23. Puffed wheat, 17. Pasta, 242. That's because it's a little higher in protein. Well, yeah. Well, it looks like the longer you cook it too, it increases a little bit of the AGE formation. But still, in comparison to the thousands, if you're in the hundreds here, you're good, okay? Corn, 20. Oh, let's let's see here. A fruit pop, 18. This is just incredible. Banana, 9. Somebody asked about the figs being so high. That's because they're full seeds, you know. Raisins, 120. They don't have a lot of fruits in here. Dates, 60. Cantaloupe, 20. Apple, 13. Cucumber, 31. Carrots, 10. Sugar, 0. We got to find the rice. So what foods do you think are going to make you live longer? It's going to be the ones that are low in the AGEs, okay? White rice, 9. So what should you eat in order to be insulin sensitive and to have less inflammation in your body, live a long life, be naturally lean, be able to eat as much as you want, provide your body with the glucose it needs to create energy, is a high carb, low fat diet. All right, that's it for today's video. Thank you so much for tuning in. Leave any comments or questions down below. Please share this video if you enjoyed it, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.